All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all you magnificent melon heads, and happy Friday. Today is August 18th, 2023. And man, it's been a busy week, hasn't it? The news cycle has been fertile ground for content creators this week in finance. Or as I told Gigi the other night, the tide has dragged in some smelly fish this week. We've got the Farmington Bank just collapsed. We got that mess in Singapore that happened a few days ago. By the way, there was a simultaneous raid. That video I did about the raid in Singapore, there was a simultaneous raid in Bangkok. Let's talk about that in this stream today. Something's up in crypto, and it manifested in a flash crash yesterday, right around 5:35, 5:40 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. Every crypto virtually simultaneously started selling off. And the problem is it happened so fast and everything moved together in unison that it's really hard to look at the charts and say, okay, this happened and then this happened and then this happened. Nope, the whole thing just went blah, down. So was this several people all selling at once? Was this a market-wide panic that cascaded? Was this one whale dumping? Was this one fraudster rug pulling and exit scamming? I don't know. Was it related to the story in Singapore and Bangkok? I just don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What was that yesterday? It's not over. There's still a lot going on in crypto, as we talked about yesterday with Jean Chalopin and everything going on that's still at Tether. There's just no way of knowing what caused what happened last night. Maybe when the smoke clears and the dust settles, we'll find out. Or it could be related to the ongoing collapse of the Chinese housing market. Remember, it's long been suspected that Tether holds most of their commercial paper or most of their reserves that may or may not even exist at all. But if they do exist, it's a good bet a lot of them are held in Chinese banks overseas. Not really a safe place to store your wealth these days, is it? So maybe that's what we saw in crypto last night, because we had Evergrande filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection here in the U.S. yesterday. They first started missing their payments in 2021. I don't know what took them so long to file for bankruptcy, but that hit the tape. I was knee-deep in the story about Farmington Bank yesterday when I got a text from my moderator, Mish, and he said Evergrande just filed for bankruptcy, and I swear I felt like the old man in the sea when he had a second fish on the line, when he was already fighting the big marlin, and he just takes out his knife and he cuts the rope. He says, I don't have time for another fish right now. That's how it felt when I found out Evergrande had collapsed yesterday. Well, not that they collapsed. They filed for U.S. bankruptcy protection. But when you look at what they actually filed, Chapter 15, it's not really a good thing for anybody here in the States. Chapter 15 just basically says, look, we're restructuring our debt overseas. And I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but my interpretation of what I've read about it is basically saying U.S. institutions back of the line if you want to pick at the bones of what's left of Evergrande's assets, because Evergrande is simultaneously restructuring their debt in the Caymans and in Hong Kong, and it looks like Western institutions will be the last to get any scraps, which there will probably be very little, because as we're seeing, money is going up in smoke at an alarming rate in China right now. The whole Chinese system is propped up by debt against buildings that are worthless. And I do mean worthless buildings, guys. These are facade buildings that have been built. They're steel and concrete in them, but there's nothing inside. Nothing was finished. Nobody can live in them. Nobody can move in. There can't be any offices. They just built shells, entire cities of shells, and then walked away and defaulted on it. And institutions lent money to these developers, so they own pieces of these buildings. Now their investors want their money back. What's that institution going to do? Sell a building that isn't finished, that nobody wants to buy? So how are they going to get their money back? And one by one, they're starting to default. It started with Evergrande, and then it spread this week to Zhongxi, or Zhongrong, who is a subsidiary of Zhongxi. Get your Zhong straight, everybody. And then Country Garden, and who knows who's going to be next, because we're starting to hear that this is spreading to other Chinese developers, even the state-owned enterprises, which were previously thought to be immune to this collapse. So things are still happening in China. And U.S. stocks are not immune. U.S. stocks have been on a, I don't want to say in free fall, but just grinding lower day after day for a couple of weeks now. I do think they're due for a bounce. Nothing goes in a straight line down forever, but that bounce has not happened yet. Futures are deep in the red again this morning. But beware, guys. Beware, especially all you 0 day to expiration guys. Today's Friday, third Friday of the month, options expiration, and there's a lot of puts that are in the money right now. Don't put it past the algorithms to engineer a big rally at the last minute today just to make sure all those puts expire worthless. We've seen it before. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could happen. Just be vigilant for that. Don't get greedy. All right. And speaking of greedy and fearful, let's shrink my big melon of a head and let's see what's going on in the markets today. Look at that. Before we talk about that, won't you please inflate that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new here? I'd sure appreciate that. We do this every day, and I'd be happy to see you tomorrow on the live stream. Fear has returned. Mark the date and time, guys. Finally, into that fear category after spending 2 months in extreme greed. And every day, the FOMO bros and the bulls would show up on my live streams, and they'd make their troll comments, and they'd talk about all-time highs. Where are these guys today? Go ahead, permabulls. Where you at? I'll wait. No? Nobody? Anybody in the back? No? Of course not. They only show up when their calls in NVIDIA do very well, and then they disappear when their money's going up in smoke. And I guess I understand that. Nobody wants to put their name and put their comments out there when their trades aren't going their way. But keep that in mind the next time the trade is going your way. Oh, look at that. It just ticked back into neutral. Me and my big mouth. Fear Greed Index at 45. Let's look at what stocks are doing this morning. We've got the S&P 500 futures set to open down about 21 points or 0.5%. Not a big move down this morning in the S&P. The Dow is set to open down 147 points or 0.43%. Again, kind of a muted reaction in the Dow. But check out the NASDAQ this morning, 0.77, almost 0.8% lower. Set to open down 113 points in the NASDAQ. So it is risk off in U.S. stocks this morning. And looking over at the DXY, the currency markets, Dixie, the U.S. dollar heading higher, up 3 basis points. Meager gains this morning, but look at that number, 103.6. Guys, the dollar has been on a tear. Even though the Chinese have been trying to defend the yuan for the last, 48 hours or so, the dollar keeps marching higher. This is not good. And, I've been saying when things get bad, people run to safety. The dollar is still the global safety trade. I know we got a lot of inflation guys here. I know we got a lot of precious metal and Bitcoin bulls here. And look, I am long-term very bearish on the dollar. I get it. The dollar's lost 99.9% of its value in the last 100 years, a trend which I think is going to continue, especially when the Fed goes back to Zerpenberg, zero interest rate policy and money printing. Any day now, that's going to happen. Maybe not any day, but within the next few months, this time next year, I think we're going to be back at zero interest rate policy. They'll be forced to. But right now, the world is going to dollars for safety. That's what's happening. They're getting out of yuan, they're getting out of yen, and they're going to dollars. And that's what a lot of the world does when things get bad. They sell assets. In other words, they run to the dollar. And that's why the DXY keeps heading higher. And let's check out this chart right now, because yesterday, the DXY, check it out, guys. There's that 200-day moving average. We just reclaimed it on the DXY. All right, we came up, we retested a couple times this line, and right now we're still higher. So recapturing the 200-day moving average, where might the next support be or where might the next resistance be? Probably not until about 104.25, which is still pretty high from here. So if the Dixie keeps marching higher and we retest these prior highs from back in May, stocks are probably heading lower for at least a few more days if that happens. Now let's look at the bond market, because the bond market, a little different this morning. Bond market, we got the long end of the curve, a little bit lower. It was much lower earlier. The 30-year yield is down 3 basis points or 4.39%. The 10-year yield is at 4.26%. That's down 4 basis points. Remember, guys, yields and values for bonds are inversely correlated. So if you see yields going down, that means people are buying bonds this morning, bidding up their prices and bidding down the interest rates. The 2-year Treasury is at 4.93. That's down 3 basis points. And the 1 month still pegged where it is, 5.38. That's up 2 basis points this morning. Let's look at the 10-year yield, because we've retested this previous closing high from back in October of around 4.24. We retested that yesterday. We were well above it, over 4.3 at one point yesterday. We went as high, what was that, as 4.33 on the 10-year Treasury yesterday. The economy, the U.S., cannot sustain that level very long. Something bad is going to happen if we stay up here. Now, we broke down below that this morning, retesting that prior high. It looks like we popped right back above it. We'll see where we close to end the day. And looking over at the commodities board, we got gold is up this morning, $7. December gold futures at $1,922. September silver futures at $22.73. That's up about a nickel or 0.36%. And West Texas Intermediate crude, September futures currently trading just over $80. Those are down about 31 cents. Let's look at a couple of commodity charts real quick. Gold, there's the 200-day moving average again. Breakdown in gold, check that one out. Not looking good on that chart, guys. But again, we're ripe for a bounce here. The 10-year Treasury yield has moved very high quickly, and gold has done the opposite, moving lower. The RSI on gold is very low here. This chart is ripe for a bounce, and that's why I'm saying don't be too surprised to see a very sudden reversal today. The gold chart, we're going to retest that 200-day moving average. We may pop back above it. The 10-year yield is due to retest lower. And let's also talk about oil, because oil is interesting. Right now, they're talking about demand destruction. The China story is huge. Oil has been selling off for about the last week, but there's some interesting things I'm seeing in the chart here right now. Look, namely this. Look at that, guys. We have got a golden cross is imminent in oil. Now, even though oil is trending down right now, a golden cross when the 50-day moving average moves above the 200-day moving average, that is a majorly bullish technical indicator. And there's a couple of things in the macro world that could trigger that. All right, the Saudis have told us time and time again that they want us to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And so far, we've only put a little bit back into the SPR, very little. And the Saudis have been cutting production to maintain that price. Every time we go down into the high 60s or the low 70s, the Saudis and the Russians announce another production cut. We could be seeing another one of those very soon. Or we could see something like the White House is trying very hard to negotiate a peace deal between the Saudis and the Israelis. Well, one of the pot sweeteners the United States could offer the Saudis would be, hey, we're going to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I don't think they'll do that because, to be honest with you, I think Biden's poll numbers are more determined by gas prices than they are by peace in the Middle East, sad as that may seem. But that's one possible outcome here. That's one possible macro development that could send oil prices lower, and that would coincide roughly with that golden cross. So again, just keep in mind a couple of these things. A lot of these charts are right at these inflection points to keep an eye on. But here's the big story this morning, guys. China property giant Evergrande files for bankruptcy protection in Manhattan court. China's heavily indebted property developer Evergrande Group on Thursday filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection in a U.S. bankruptcy court. In a filing to the Manhattan court, the firm sought recognition of restructuring talks underway in Hong Kong, the Cayman Islands, and the British Virgin Islands. These guys are going bankrupt everywhere. And they're basically saying the U.S., people in the U.S. who Evergrande owes money to, back of the line, y'all. That's what they're telling us. The world's most indebted property developer defaulted in 2021 and announced an offshore debt restructuring program in March. And just want to clarify a little here. Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection allows a U.S. bankruptcy court to intervene in cross-border insolvency cases involving foreign companies that are undergoing restructuring from creditors. And this line's important. It aims to protect the debtors, not the debtees, not the people who bought the debt. Chapter 15 protects the company that owes the money. This is a move to protect Evergrande. It protects their assets and facilitates the rescue of businesses that are in financial trouble. So this is all about making sure Western financial institutions don't get to pick at the bones of Evergrande. Also, by the way, Tianji Holdings, an affiliate of Evergrande, and its subsidiary, Scenery Journey, also filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection in Manhattan court, according to the filing. So it was not just Evergrande. They've also got these other companies announcing here. Now, let's also talk about some more developments beyond Evergrande in China, because, guys, I feel like some of you may not be taking the walk with me on the scale of this problem. This is the biggest asset bubble in history. It really is that big. China state developers warn of losses as crisis spreads. Almost half of listed SOEs, that's state-owned enterprises, almost half of the SOE builders warned of first-half losses, reduces their ability to support China's housing market. China's state-owned property developers are warning of widespread losses, fueling concerns that the housing crisis is expanding from the private sector to companies with government backing. Now, pay attention to some of these numbers here. 18 out of 38 state-owned enterprise builders listed in Hong Kong and the mainland reported preliminary losses in the first 6 months ended June 30th. So 38 have listed that they're taking losses in the first half of the year. That's up from 11 that warned of losses back in 2022, and that's up from only 4 firms that reported losses in 2021. So let's extrapolate here, guys. We've 4 in 2021, 11 in 2022, and in the first half of this year, 38 in just the first 6 months of 2023. This is contagion. It's spreading. And guys, these are state-owned enterprises. These are companies that have the backing of the Chinese Communist Party. These are not, these little mom and pop organizations. These are big companies with a lot of firepower with the government standing behind them. And check out this one also. We were talking about oil. CNNOC. How do you pronounce that? Chinook? I don't know how you pronounce that. CNNOC boss raises prospect that China's oil demand has peaked. This is interesting. Talking about peak demand in China. The head of one of China's top oil firms said demand growth will be curbed for the rest of this year and raises the prospect that it may have already peaked forever. Forever. I did a double take when I read that the first time. I said, whoa. And this is the head of one of China's top oil firms. Remember, guys, the Chinese Communist Party is cracking down on negative economic sentiment. You're not allowed to say deflation in China. The government data is all skewed. So in the face of a crackdown and censorship on negative economic data, the head of one of China's top oil firms is saying oil demand may have peaked forever, as in China's economy may never recover from the housing collapse. Yes, this is as bad as Jack has been saying since 2021. Poorer than expected economic data for the second quarter will curb oil and gas demand growth for the rest of the year. Chinook Chief Executive Officer Zhu Jinghuai, I hope I'm pronouncing this stuff right, said on a conference call on Friday. Oil demand has peaked forever. And guys, I have to tell you once again, if you saw my talk at last year's Silver Symposium, or if you saw the presentation I made at the Economic Ninja Speak Freely event in Dallas, then none of this is a surprise to you. And most of the people I talked to at these events were shocked at the extent and the rot and some of the numbers. There was a lot of data. There was a lot of charts in this presentation because nobody special always brings receipts. I don't just spout off. I have data that backs up everything I say. And people were shocked at the magnitude and the absurdity of the valuations and some of the ratios like value to income, what people were paying for these homes in China, the amount of debt relative to GDP in China. It's incomparable. There has never been an asset bubble like this. I talked all about it at the Silver Symposium last year. You should have been at this event. If you were at this event, none of this would have caught you off guard. And it happens again in just 42 days. I will be there and I'll be speaking again at this event. Joe Brown from Heresy Financial, Dan from I Allegedly, The Economic Ninja, Chris Taylor, David Morgan, Andy Scheckman, all your favorite precious metals investors and names in YouTube are going to be there. Use that link I got down in the description, guys. That is an affiliate link. You'll get 10% off of your tickets. Come up to me, say hello, let's have a beer, and let's talk markets in Vegas at Caesars Palace on September 29th to October 1st. And the next story, guys, another big one happened yesterday, and I'm not convinced this is entirely unrelated to what's going on in China. Another thing I talked about in my Silver Symposium talk last year, because there are China connections to crypto, a lot of them actually. And as it happens, as the Chinese housing bubble is melting down, yesterday we had a flash crash in Bitcoin and virtually every other cryptocurrency. Bitcoin abruptly tumbles as much as 9% to just over 26,000 late Thursday. The flagship virtual currency fell sharply around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Bitcoin was trading around $26,400. That was just before 7 p.m. So it fell several $1,000s in just a few minutes, guys. And I'll show you in the charts in a second. The action came. This is great. I love this. This is so hapless of CNBC. They have no idea what happened. So you might as well just sprinkle some hate on Elon Musk in here to try to explain this away. Nicely done, Darla Mikado, CFP, who says the action came a few hours after the Wall Street Journal reported that documents show SpaceX wrote down the value of its Bitcoin holdings by $373 million in 2021. Elon Musk's SpaceX's CEO, has historically been a supporter of cryptocurrency. So Darla Mercado here at CNBC is suggesting the flash crash yesterday was because of SpaceX and Elon Musk. Okay. All right, CNBC. Tell me you don't know anything about what's going on in crypto without actually telling me. Because why would an Elon Musk writing down Bitcoin in 2021, that's what caused this in the Bitcoin chart. All of a sudden at 1741 Eastern time yesterday, Bitcoin goes from 27,500 and within 3 minutes, it went to 25,200. And you think that was because hours earlier, SpaceX had reported a write-down in their crypto holdings from 2021. Okay. All right, CNBC. Nobody knows what happened last night, but I can tell you it was big. Somebody with very big pockets made a big dump. Mish was telling me he was looking at some of the on-chain analytics. It wasn't any one specific wallet. There was a lot of wallets dumping, and it was just a cascade. So I don't know if it was a trading algorithm, if it was just a sudden panic or a sudden margin call, or it triggered some liquidation clause or some smart contract somewhere. Nobody really knows what happened. It all happened all at once at the same time. Nobody can tell. Now, it's recovered a little bit of those losses. Let's zoom out a little bit here. We have recovered a little bit of those losses. We're currently at 26.2, so we bounced back a little bit, but that was a big move. And look at Tether, by the way. This is in CoinMarketCap. Now, what we're looking at here is Tether's value. Now, right around the same time, 1740. Now, it actually started around 1735 in Tether. Tether had lost its peg recently. It's been trading below $1 for about a month. Not way below $1, but suspiciously below $1. Tether has been depegged for a while. We've had bigger depegs in Tether before, but never for this long. Even the depeg after the FTX collapse, it didn't quite go on this long. It was more severe, but it wasn't this bad in duration. Well, when that sell-off happened in Bitcoin, Tether very briefly regained its peg. It went back above $1. And I guess that makes sense. All of a sudden, everybody's selling their Bitcoin and their Ethereum and their Meloncoin and everything else. All of a sudden, you have an increase in demand for Tethers because in most of the exchanges, when you sell your crypto, you get Tether. So that could explain why we had this momentary repeg of Tether. And of course, then the depeg resumed and it started selling off, I guess, as people tried to redeem their Tether. I don't know if they were able to. I hear rumors that nobody's ever able to redeem their Tether. Let me know down in the comments. Has anybody that watches this channel ever actually redeemed a USDT for a US dollar? Have you ever gotten out of Tether and ended up with $1 in a bank account somewhere else? To my knowledge, nobody's ever actually done that wasn't a crypto whale. Let me know if you've been able to do that. I've never tried. I won't touch Tether with a 10-foot pole, so I'll never find out. But it's interesting to see that. And also, check out BNB token. This is Changpeng Zhou or CZ Binance. This is his little stupid air token, which somehow is still trading at $217. Wash trading. But BNB also sold off pretty hard yesterday. 222, went all the way down to 211, and then again rebounced. But everything moved at the same time. That's kind of what I'm trying to point out here, guys. Everything, Ethereum, Litecoin, all of it made big moves, and it all started right around 5:40 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. I don't know why, but I have a suspicion. And go back and check out that video that I did about the big money laundering bust in Singapore. I did it 2 days ago, put a lot of DD into that one. That story was amazing. Chinese spies, suitcases full of cash, these stupid Care Bear Lego Man things that got confiscated. It was hilarious. But while that was happening, while that massive bust involving more than 400 cops and more than 90 real estate properties and over $1 billion, or close to $1 billion, I should say, in Singapore, there was a simultaneous bust in Bangkok. And I forget the names. Somebody pointed this out to me on Twitter. Thank you very much, whoever it was that pointed this out on Twitter. I'm sorry, sir. I can't remember your name off the top of my head, or I'd give you the credit you deserve. But somebody commented on my video on Twitter about the Singapore bust that this had happened almost at the exact same time. Chinese realtor held in a scam crackdown. A Rolls Royce and other assets were seized in raids at 29 different sites linked to crypto fraud and money laundering. So while these 90 properties and all these Chinese nationals were getting busted in Singapore, the same thing was happening in Bangkok on the same day. I don't know that it was like down to the same minute, but this looks like coordination here. I don't know if these governments are coordinating or not, but I speculated in the Singapore video that maybe there's other countries are going to be involved. I had no idea about this Bangkok bust at the time. Police have arrested a Chinese woman for various crimes, including fraud and money laundering, following raids on 29 locations linked to her in Bangkok, Pathum, Tanai, and Chonburi. I don't know how to pronounce any of this stuff, guys. I don't get out much. Please don't hold it against me. Feng Pei Kai was apprehended in her luxury apartment in the Lumpini area of Bangkok. She's expected to face charges of colluding in transactional crimes, fraud, putting false information into a computer system, and money laundering. And check this out. Police confiscated over 100 items from 29 locations linked to the suspect, including a 39 million baht Rolls Royce. That's about $1 million US. $1 million car got confiscated. Other luxury cars, including Alfords and Mercedes-Benz. I don't even know what an Alford is. I'm not a car guy. And documents for lease agreements worth 1.5 billion baht. Yikes. These are big numbers involved. It was said that this Chinese woman and other accomplices divided up the tasks to lure victims. She had duped victims into investing in fraudulent cryptocurrency schemes. In a separate case, police teams searched 3 locations in Bangkok, including a room at a luxury condo project. And during that search, they arrested Momo Ai. Okay, Momo Ai, a 24-year-old Myanmar national. She faces charges of colluding in fraud, inputting false information in a computer system, and money laundering. Apparently, this was all a gang involved in a phone scam where they call up people and tell them some of your relative has been arrested in Bangkok. You better send us crypto now, otherwise we're going to beat them up in jail. I've seen this before. I've heard about it. This is why you never post that you're going on vacation to social media. Never, ever, ever put that on social media, guys. It will make you a sitting duck for this, because they may not target you. They might target your mother. They might find out that you're on vacation, and then through your digital online footprint, figure out who your mother is. And while you're on vacation and out of cell reception, they call up your mother or your grandmother and say, we have him and we're going to hurt him if you don't pay us. And if you hang up the phone, we're going to beat him up or we're going to kill him. They target people, they create a false sense of urgency, and the next thing you know, they've bought crypto or they've wired money or they've Western Unioned it, and it's gone before anybody knows. So be careful what you put online, folks, says the guy who puts his whole life on YouTube. All right, I got a couple people I got to say thank yous to this morning in the super chats here. What's going on? Keenan Haywood says November 20. I'm struggling with it. Okay, November of 2021, I YouTube searched Evergrande, and this melonhead explained it to me as if I was a child or a golden retriever. Did you head tilt, Keenan? Did you do that when I explained Evergrande to you? He says, now we're full circle Jack. Circle Jack. All right, you guys with the dirty mind out there, don't even put it in the comments. Keep it neat, everybody. Thank you so much, Keenan, for joining the channel back in 2021 and for sticking through this whole time. And thank you for your input in the Zoom call on Patreon this week. Very much. Keenan's also a member of our Patreon group. We get together once a week on Zoom every week. Link down below should you feel so inclined. Thank you very much, Keenan, for the super chat, for the support of the channel, for your time, for watching. And yeah, this does kind of feel like closure, doesn't it? Of that 2021 story that mysteriously dropped out of the headlines for most of 2022. Nobody was talking about the China housing collapse in 2022, and I warned people that's still a thing. They didn't fix anything. Thanks a lot, Keenan. I appreciate the super chat, brother, and thank you to the inflation situation. Says, great report on Moonstone yesterday. Thanks to you and Mish. Thank you very much, inflation situation. I had a lot of fun also with that Moonstone Bank one. I remember that's another one from November of last year around Thanksgiving. That little, I called it Shed Bank, Sam Bankman-Fried's little bank. And I remember being just in disbelief, incredulous, that U.S. regulators signed off on these dirtbags buying a U.S. bank and joining the Federal Reserve System. Mary Daly, what are you doing over there at the San Francisco Fed? And why does Mary Daly still have a job? My God, the power these people wield, and they're incompetent. Best case scenario, total incompetence. Worst case scenario, complicit in the scheme. Either way, Mary Daly's got to go. You're out of here. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, inflation situation. Appreciate the super chat, the support of the channel, and real estate mindset. What's going on, Travis? He says, Jack for president. Good God, no. Good God, no. All the ex-girlfriends and all the... Let's just say I'll keep the tabloids busy with everything I did in college, okay? I spent a long time in college, and it wasn't because I was a great student, Travis. So thank you very much, Real Estate Mindset. I appreciate the sentiment, brother, but my God, well, Jack for president. It would be hilarious. It would be fun to watch, but it would be fun to watch in the same way that a train wreck is fun to watch, or in the same way it was fun to watch Fokker implode and Meet the Parents. It was just so awful you couldn't look away. That would be me running for political office. So no thank you. But hey, guys, while you're at it, check out Travis at the Real Estate Mindset. You know, a couple of you guys have commented in the comments recently saying, congratulations, Jack, the channel is growing again. I'd love to see that. And, you know, so many people have said, why doesn't this channel have more subscribers? Let me tell you, all this recent channel growth is because of Travis here at Real Estate Mindset. He invited me to come on the channel. We did an interview each on each other's channel, and that's what rekindled the growth in the channel again. I was in the doldrums for like 6 months. There was no growth at all in this channel. And Travis, brother, you jarred something loose in the YouTube algorithm when you invited me onto the channel. So thank you so much for that. Guys, check out Real Estate Mindset. While you're here, be sure to tell them that nobody sent you. Thanks again, brother. I appreciate that very much. All right, guys, that's all the time we got for today. Thank you, everyone, very much for your super chats. Thank you for my Patreon supporters for everything you guys do for the channel. And along with the link to the Patreon down below is that link to the Silver Symposium. I'm telling you, that's a great event, guys. And if you were there last year, you would have known all about what's happening right now. So come on out to Spokane. It's in Vegas this year at Caesars Palace. Let's have a drink and let's talk markets. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. And until next time, live small and dream big.